The private jet touches down at LAX on a clear Sunday morning in April 2025. Its pilot, a weathered man of 82, eases the aircraft to a gentle stop with hands that once held a whip, a blaster, the controls of the Millennium Falcon. Harrison Ford descends the stairs slowly, sunglasses shielding eyes that have seen 7 decades of stardom. He carries his own luggage, a briefcase and rucksack, no entourage, no fanfare. This is a man who built himself from nothing, piece by piece, like the carpentry projects he once crafted between auditions, and now finds himself the last legend standing in a Hollywood that barely resembles the one he entered. Just weeks earlier, shingles had forced him from the public eye, another painful reminder that even icons face mortality. Yet here he stands, flying his own plane at an age when most have long retreated from such risks. The same stubbornness that makes him continue working, still filming, still flying, is the very quality that brought him from carpenter to cultural cornerstone. But that journey has cost him 3 marriages, countless injuries, near-death experiences, and the quiet anonymity he's always craved. But to understand how Harrison Ford became both Hollywood's most reluctant star and its most enduring survivor, we need to trace the path from a shy Chicago boy to the man who would build one of cinema's most legendary careers on the foundation of characters who, like himself, face impossible odds with a defiant snarl. This is the story of Harrison Ford, a man who never wanted fame but built an unparalleled legacy through sheer force of will, and is now reckoning with the cost. His journey reveals the cruel irony of a man who achieved incredible success playing charismatic rogues while privately battling a profound discomfort with stardom itself. Today, as he approaches his mid-80s while refusing to slow down, Ford embodies both the triumph of aging with purpose and the heartbreak of outliving friends, marriages, and the Hollywood era that made him. If this story moves you, tap like so others find it. Harrison Ford's story begins not with glamour, but with uncertainty. Born July 13, 1942, at Swedish Covenant Hospital in Chicago to Dorothy, a former radio actress, and Christopher, an advertising executive and former actor, Ford's early years offered little hint of the cultural icon he would become. As a child and teenager in the Chicago suburbs, he was painfully shy, a trait that would haunt him throughout his life and create a stark contrast with the confident heroes he would later portray. At Maine Township High School East in Park Ridge, Illinois, Ford was an unremarkable student, never above a C average, no athletic achievements to speak of. Classmates remember him as quiet, almost invisible. This invisibility planted early seeds of insecurity that would later manifest as an intense work ethic and a drive to prove himself. The young Harrison retreated into his imagination, finding solace in creating things with his hands rather than seeking the spotlight. His entrance into Ripon College in Wisconsin in 1960 might have followed the same pattern of anonymity had it not been for a desperate decision during his junior year. Struggling with crushing shyness and searching for a way to meet women, Ford registered for a drama class. The decision was pragmatic rather than passionate. He simply wanted to connect with people, but it inadvertently set his life's course. Yet even this beginning was marked by setback. Just 3 days before graduation, Ford was expelled for failing a philosophy class, a bitter disappointment that left him without a degree after 4 years of study. In 1964, Ford married his college girlfriend Mary Marquardt, beginning what would become a pattern of building and losing families amid the demands of an extraordinary career. The newlyweds moved to Los Angeles, where Ford, now 22, hoped to pursue voiceover work. Instead, he found himself signing a contract with Columbia Pictures as a bit player for $150 a week. The studio even assigned him the middle initial J to distinguish him from a silent film actor of the same name. But Hollywood proved cruelly indifferent to the newcomer. After a string of forgettable roles and constant feedback that he lacked the charisma to be a leading man, Ford found himself struggling to support his young family. In one telling incident, producer Jerry Tarkovsky berated Ford, saying that when actor Tony Curtis delivered groceries, you could tell he was a movie star, but Ford wasn't. Ford's retort, that if Curtis was truly talented, he'd have delivered them like a bellhop, got him fired, but revealed the defiant spirit that would eventually define his career. By 1970, disillusioned and needing to provide for his growing family, sons Benjamin and Willard were born in 1966 and 1969, Ford made a pivotal decision. He would abandon acting and become a carpenter. This wasn't a temporary job between auditions. It was a career change born of necessity and disillusionment. The first wound was cut. The dream of acting seemed dead, replaced by the practical need to earn a living with his hands. In a twist worthy of the movies that would later make him famous, Ford's carpentry skills would ultimately resurrect his acting career. While building cabinets for director George Lucas in 1975, Ford was asked to read lines for actors being cast in a space fantasy film called Star Wars. Lucas, who had previously cast Ford in American Graffiti, 1973, initially had no intention of hiring him again. It was Steven Spielberg who first recognized Ford's potential for the role of Han Solo, the cocky space pilot who would become one of cinema's most beloved characters. When Star Wars exploded into theaters in 1977, transforming from quirky space opera to global phenomenon, the 35-year-old carpenter-turned-reluctant actor found himself thrust into a spotlight he neither expected nor particularly wanted. For a man who had struggled with shyness his entire life, the sudden fame was jarring. Ford earned just $10,000 for the role that would change his life forever, a sum that would be laughable compared to the millions he would command in later years. But success came with immediate costs. As Ford's star rose, his first marriage crumbled under the weight of his newfound fame. His relationship with Mary Marquardt ended in divorce in 1979 after 15 years, a casualty of a career that was suddenly consuming everything in its path. Adding to the complexity was a brief affair with his Star Wars co-star Carrie Fisher during filming, a relationship that would remain private for decades until Fisher revealed it in her 2016 memoir. Ford had little time to process these personal losses. By 1981, lightning struck twice when Steven Spielberg cast him as archaeologist Indiana Jones in Raiders of the Lost Ark, cementing Ford as that rarest of Hollywood commodities, an actor who anchored not one but two blockbuster franchises simultaneously. Between 1980 and 1983, he completed The Empire Strikes Back, Raiders of the Lost Ark, and Return of the Jedi, establishing a back-to-back-to-back run of success almost unheard of in Hollywood. The cost ledger, however, continued to grow. The physical toll of performing many of his own stunts began accumulating. During the filming of Temple of Doom in 1983, the 40-year-old Ford suffered a severe back injury that necessitated surgery and forced him to fly back to Los Angeles in the middle of production. This began a pattern of injuries that would follow him throughout his career, from the Star Wars set, where a hydraulic door on the Millennium Falcon fractured his leg in 2014, to multiple aviation incidents that left him bloodied but unbowed. June 1983. Elstree Studios, London. Harrison Ford lies immobile on a hospital gurney, his face tight with pain. The herniated disc in his back has left him unable to continue filming Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. As medics prepare him for an emergency flight back to Los Angeles, director Steven Spielberg watches helplessly. Production will halt for 6 weeks while Ford recovers from surgery, an eternity in blockbuster filmmaking. Yet neither Ford nor the studio considers recasting. At 40, he's already become irreplaceable, his body the currency with which he purchases authenticity on screen. While his professional life soared, Ford's personal life stabilized temporarily when he married screenwriter Melissa Matheson in 1983. Together, they had 2 children, Malcolm and Georgia, creating a new family unit that Ford hoped would provide stability amid his accelerating career. Yet the contradictions of his life grew more pronounced. He craved privacy, yet had become one of the most recognizable faces on the planet. He valued craftsmanship, but found himself the center of a commercial movie industry. He sought authentic experiences, but made his living in the world of make-believe. Throughout the 1980s and early 1990s, Ford expanded beyond his franchise roles, earning critical acclaim for more dramatic work. His performance in Witness, 1985, earned him his only Academy Award nomination, while films like The Mosquito Coast, 1986, Working Girl, 1988, and Presumed Innocent, 1990, showcased his range beyond action heroes. Yet his most commercially successful roles remained the swashbuckling adventurers he claimed to feel increasingly distant from. The early 1990s brought Ford to another career peak with the back-to-back success of Patriot Games, 1992, and The Fugitive, 1993. At age 51, when many actors begin to fade, Ford commanded $7 million per film and had joined an elite group of actors whose mere presence could greenlight a project. But as his professional stock rose, his second marriage began to falter. In 1993, he and Matheson separated, though they wouldn't officially divorce until 2004 after a lengthy and expensive legal battle. March 5, 2015. Penmar Golf Course, Venice, California. The vintage World War II-era Ryan PT-22 recruit airplane piloted by a 72-year-old Harrison Ford plummets from the sky after engine failure shortly after takeoff. The aircraft slams into the golf course at high speed, crumpling on impact. First responders rush to the scene, expecting the worst. They find Ford bloodied but conscious, having somehow survived what investigators would later call a near-fatal crash. Paramedics load him onto a stretcher, his face a mask of pain, his body broken once again. A shattered ankle, fractured pelvis, broken arm, and a serious gash to his head. This wasn't Ford's first brush with death in an aircraft. A 1999 helicopter crash in Santa Clarita had already tested his mortality, but it was by far the most serious. For a man who had survived decades of on-set injuries, this real-life drama nearly accomplished what no movie stunt could, ending the life of one of cinema's most enduring stars. As news of the crash spread, the world held its breath. The man who had survived the Death Star, outwitted the Nazis, and escaped countless fictional deaths was now fighting for his life in a Los Angeles hospital. The crash represented more than a physical injury. It forced a reckoning with age and mortality for a man who had built his career on seeming indestructible. At 72, Ford was being reminded in the most violent way possible that even legends must eventually face their limitations. The 2015 plane crash marked the beginning of a difficult period for Ford. Physical recovery was slow and painful, requiring months of rehabilitation. The crash investigation revealed that while mechanical failure had caused the engine to quit, Ford's skill as a pilot had likely saved his life. He had managed to avoid crashing into a densely populated neighborhood, instead guiding the failing aircraft to the relatively open space of a golf course. Even in crisis, his cool-headed pragmatism had prevailed. But as Ford worked to heal his body, other losses accumulated. In 2015, his ex-wife, Melissa Matheson, died of neuroendocrine cancer. Though their marriage had ended years earlier, they had maintained a connection through their children, and her death represented another piece of his past slipping away. The same year brought Ford back to the Star Wars universe in The Force Awakens, but the triumphant return was tinged with tragedy. His character Han Solo, the role that had made him a star nearly 4 decades earlier, was killed off in a scene that mirrored Ford's long-held desire for the character to have a meaningful death. While fans mourned Solo, Ford seemed almost relieved to be freed from the character's shadow. As he moved into his late 70s, Ford found himself increasingly isolated as a last survivor of a bygone Hollywood era. Close friends and collaborators like Carrie Fisher, Sean Connery, and Peter Mayhew, who played Chewbacca, passed away, leaving Ford as one of the last standing icons of the blockbuster age he had helped create. The loneliness of outliving peers became a burden he carried silently. Ford's aviation troubles continued as well. In 2017, he mistakenly landed on a taxiway at John Wayne Airport in Orange County, flying directly over an American Airlines passenger jet. Though no one was injured, the incident triggered an FAA investigation and renewed calls for the aging actor to give up flying. Ford, never one to back down from a challenge, refused, though he did complete additional awareness training as required. At an age when most have long settled into retirement, Ford continued pushing his limits both professionally and personally. But the strain began to show. During filming of the 5th Indiana Jones film in 2021, production had to be paused when Ford injured his shoulder during a fight scene. At 78, his body was finally demanding the rest he refused to give it. Perhaps most painful was watching the franchises he built continue without him, or move in directions he didn't recognize. When he returned as Rick Deckard for Blade Runner 2049 in 2017, the film, while critically acclaimed, struggled at the box office. His final turn as Indiana Jones in 2023's The Dial of Destiny received mixed reviews, with some critics suggesting the character should have been retired sooner. For a craftsman who prided himself on quality, watching his legacy characters falter brought a particular kind of heartbreak. As the 2020s progressed, Ford found his health increasingly fragile. In February 2025, at age 82, a shingles diagnosis forced him to withdraw from presenting at the Academy Awards, a public acknowledgement of vulnerability that the intensely private actor would have preferred to avoid. The man who had spent his life avoiding publicity now found his health making headlines. Yet, amid these challenges, Harrison Ford has found an unexpected late-career renaissance. His marriage to Callista Flockhart, whom he wed in 2010 after 8 years of dating, has provided stability and companionship in his later years. Together, they raised Flockhart's adopted son, Liam, giving Ford a chance at fatherhood in a different stage of life. The couple splits their time between their Wyoming ranch, where Ford indulges his passion for flying and conservation, and their home in Los Angeles. Ford has also embraced television for the first time in decades, taking roles in the Yellowstone prequel 1923 and the Apple TV Plus comedy Shrinking. These performances have earned him critical acclaim and his first Emmy nomination, proving that his talents extend beyond the action hero roles that made him famous. In February 2025, he even ventured into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, playing Thaddeus Ross in Captain America: Brave New World, a move that surprised fans who associated him with an earlier era of filmmaking. What remains constant is Ford's commitment to craft. Even as his body has slowed, his dedication to authenticity has not. He approaches roles with the same intensity and preparation that marked his early career, refusing to coast on reputation or charm. When asked why he continues to work at an age when most have retired, he replied simply, "I suppose I should be sitting on my ass, but I actually love working." His love for aviation also continues despite multiple incidents. As an experienced pilot with over 5,000 hours of flight time, Ford has used his skills for good, participating in search and rescue operations near his Wyoming home. In 2001, he located a lost Boy Scout in Yellowstone National Park who had been missing for 19 hours, one example of how he has leveraged his skills and resources to help others. Ford's environmental activism has become increasingly important in his later years. Since 1991, he has served as the inaugural vice chair of Conservation International, using his platform to advocate for protecting natural habitats. He donated half of his 800-acre Wyoming property as a nature reserve, putting his values into practice in tangible ways. At 82, Ford's face maps a journey through triumph and heartbreak. Each line tells a story of stunts gone wrong, of marriages built and broken, of battles with fame he never wanted, of friends lost to time. The same determined scowl that faced down stormtroopers and Nazis now confronts aging with the same defiance. When asked about getting older in a recent interview, Ford declared, "I don't want to be young again." He has found peace with his age, embracing the wisdom and perspective it brings rather than fighting the inevitable. Perhaps the most poignant aspect of Ford's later years is his reckoning with love. In August 2025, during an appearance on NPR, the notoriously private actor opened up about relationships, stating, "Old people can love too. You know, you think about falling in love and all of that business. You think it's the business of youth or something, and staying in love is the issue." After two failed marriages, Ford has found lasting partnership with Flockhart, proving that growth and connection remain possible at any age. The tragedy of Harrison Ford is not that his life has been marked by failure, quite the contrary. It's that the very qualities that made him exceptional, his stubborn determination, his insistence on authenticity, his willingness to risk his body for his craft, have exacted a heavy toll. His success came at the cost of privacy, physical well-being, and, at times, personal relationships. He has outlived contemporaries, survived crashes that should have killed him, and endured the physical decline that comes with aging while refusing to surrender to it. Yet in that struggle lies a profound lesson about resilience and purpose. Ford has never stopped working, never stopped flying, never stopped evolving as an actor and a man. His refusal to fade gracefully into retirement represents both his greatest strength and his most poignant vulnerability. He remains, as he has always been, a contradiction. The reluctant star who became irreplaceable, the private man who belongs to the public imagination, the aging icon who refuses to be defined by his past glories. Today, Harrison Ford stands alone at the edge of his Wyoming property, gazing across the landscape he has fought to protect. The same hands that once built cabinets between auditions now control multi-million-dollar aircraft and have shaped one of cinema's most legendary careers. At 82, he embodies both triumph and tragedy, the last man standing from a Hollywood era that has largely vanished, carrying the weight of that legacy in every painful step and every new character. His story reminds us that our greatest strengths often exact the heaviest costs, and that true resilience isn't about avoiding falls, but about rising after them, again and again. Which moment in Harrison Ford's journey resonates most deeply with you? The carpenter who became a reluctant star? The action hero who outlived his own franchises? Or perhaps the 82-year-old who, despite every reason to stop, refuses to be grounded. If his story moved you, share it with someone who appreciates that our scars, whether from movie stunts, crashed planes, or broken hearts, are not just marks of pain, but maps of a life fully lived. Because in the end, Harrison Ford's most compelling role was never Han Solo or Indiana Jones, but the complex, contradictory, stubbornly authentic man behind the legend.